Did I do it? Are we here? Look, I got a picture from last time on here. Well, hold on. We got to shut something off here. Got to shut that off. There we go. Hey, we're here. Welcome. Can everybody hear me? How's it going tonight, everybody? What is going down? Good. What's going down? Huh? Ty Stone. See, he knows what's going down. I am late. Sorry. Let me shut my phone off. Am I lined up good? I'm not really in the middle. I hope everybody can hear me okay. Give me a something. Hey, Keel's here. Glad to be around for this one. Well, good to have you. Don't get into the Discord much. Well, welcome. This is Tequila. Look at a PBR. All right. There we go. Okay. Oh, you know what I have to do? Last thing. I'll tell you the story here. I'm just as soon as I have this. Here we go. What is going down? Lord of the Rings, CCO, MTG, Tolkien themes. Here we go. I turned my recorder on because people had requested that I record these and release them on the podcast channel, and I kind of forgot to do that last time. I can still make it happen, but I forgot last time. So we're here. I'm not centered really because last time we had pictures. Today we're not going to have pictures. Today is going to be more dialogue, and I can. Oh, Keel, thank you. We can engage a little bit, and I think Lara actually in the CCO Discord has got set up a voice hangout for these. If there's no voice hangout specifically for the Lord of the Rings streams, just use the regular voice channel if you're in the Discord and you want to chat. I'm not going to be in there this time because I don't have my headphones. I was planning to have my headphones in and I was going to talk, and I can also hear other people talking, but I'm a little bit late because we're building this fireplace in my basement, and I was an hour longer painting a magic card today than I wanted to be because I was an hour longer fighting with my airbrush than I wanted to be, because I was an hour longer in the city because the post office didn't open until 10 a.m. So there I was, shipping CCO hats, play mats. Big thanks to everybody who bought those over at commandercookout.com. If you're new, you can check it out. Everything Commander Cookout is at commandercookout.com. The cast, the store, the backlog, everything is there. So here we go. Oh yeah, Teferi. Which way is it? Am I doing that right? I can't. Frick. Okay, we're here. I didn't even shut my phone off because I'm so excited. One of the things that was suggested from last time, good friend of the show, Mac. Hey, Joe Kruppy's here. What's going down? Friend of the show, Mac, had suggested that we stick to a little bit of an agenda. And two things. First thing, I have sort of an agenda for me. Second thing is we're not really going to stick to an agenda. So that'll be what it'll be. What I want to talk about today are themes that we can identify in Tolkien, specifically Lord of the Rings, and how we might be able to speculate and or apply that to the upcoming Lord of the Rings set. It's called the Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth, or Tales from Middle-earth. What is it again? Middle-earth. Oh, the PBR's getting to me. Tales of Middle-earth. So I have on a separate screen, just kidding, it's the same screen, just smaller. I have what I wrote down as the themes that I think are present in the Lord of the Rings. This isn't an exhaustive list, but I've got them listed, and if we don't get through all of them today, we can revisit in 2 weeks from now, because next weekend I'm in Vancouver. 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks. I want to do these as often as I can because I can, of course, just talk about Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, Magic the Gathering all day. Who else is in the chat there? Israel, good to have you back. So first, I mentioned commandercookout.com. Looks like everybody who's in the chat that I can see so far are people that know all about the store and subscribing, and that I love Lord of the Rings. We talked about this last week, or we had a stream last week at 9 my time. And if you haven't checked it out, go check it out, because that's where we looked at all the product images. That's where we speculated on cards and characters and potential abilities and all that kind of stuff. That's where all of that was. And that's what these images were from. That's one of the product things. So this week, I wanted to kick it off with all of that and talking through a little bit and hearing from you guys in the chat about theme. Theme. And that can mean a couple different things. It could mean the themes that are present in the novels that the card set, Tales of Middle-earth, is being adapted from. It could mean the theme that we see that the set takes. Now, not necessarily, like we talked about last week, not necessarily like white-green elves or black-red or Rakdos, Mordor, aggro. Not necessarily like the mechanical draft archetype themes, but are they leaning into the theme from the novel, friendship, in the commander decks? Maybe there'll be a group hug deck. Very on the nose and trivial example, but those are the two things. How are they going to build up the theme friendship? And are we going to be able to see it in card form or in set form or in pre-con form? Are we going to see those? So that's what I want to be looking at here. I don't know if anybody cares about that image. We'll just leave Teferi up there. So theme. Let's get some groundwork or some ground rules out of the way here real quick. Theme, when I talk about PBR, it's killing me. Sorry. When I talk about theme, this is something that we can identify as a recurring through line or motif or something that we can draw meaning from or applicability from. There's a Tolkien word for anybody who's read the Lord of the Rings, the foreword on the Lord of the Rings. Tolkien writes in an applicability style. So what that means is when you read it, you can find things in the literature, in the story, that are applicable to your everyday life. And this is one of the reasons that the story is a classic and is one of the most popular works of the 20th century and of all time, and is one of the most important biblical works in the last 500 years. That's why this story is so important, because A, it's very long. So it might take you a year to read it your first time. It's like 1,600 pages or 1,100 pages, whatever it is. And it might take you a year to read it. And you say, hey, that's pretty good. I want to read that again. Put that on the shelf. You come back to it in a year from now, you read it, or 5 years from now. You watch the films, then you go back to the book. And every time you revisit the story, you learn or you draw from it some new idea, some new thing, some part of the story, some character, something that they say becomes meaningful to you where it wasn't before. And Magic is very much like this, in that each year we get 700 products, and each one is generally a new world, a new set is a new place, it's a new setting. And sometimes we find meaning in it, sometimes we don't. Sometimes when we go back to Dominaria, let's say in 2018, 2018, we find applicability in the Invasion card set or block, Invasion, Planeshift, Apocalypse. We find cards there that suddenly have this new meaning because we saw something that was a riff off of that that was from Invasion. And then we revisit Dominaria again in Dominaria United. And that might make us feel something about Dominaria or Invasion, but it might also make us feel something about War of the Spark, because Dominaria United and Phyrexia All Will Be One and March of the Machines kind of feels like the Invasion and War of the Spark all kind of rolled into one. It's the Phyrexian invasion across multiple planes. And I'm not saying that they're recycling anything in those stories, even though it might feel like that sometimes. And I'm not saying Tolkien recycles themes or things that repeat in the story. What I'm saying is every time we revisit something, we find new meaning in it. And those are the things that I want to focus on today. Those are the themes. Those are the things that, now that I became a dad and I read Lord of the Rings, it's totally different. Totally different. Now that I'm a grown-up, even before I was a dad, totally different than when I was a kid. After I saw the movies, the story became totally different to me because I focused, when I watched the movies, on different themes, different aspects of the story that were more forward-facing in the films, like the friendship between Merry and Pippin. I didn't get that really the first time I read the book, or when I knew what the story was, even before I read the book. I didn't get that. I knew Frodo and Sam, and I knew hobbits in general, but I didn't get Merry and Pippin until I watched the films, and then I go back to the books, and I'm like, oh yeah, wow, they actually go through a lot of hardship together, and then they say that they miss each other a lot in the book, and I didn't get that the first time. And then at the end of the book, where Merry and Pippin basically lead the Shire army to defeat the ruffians, that kind of just went over my head. So I've got a list of themes here. I'm going to read them out, and then we're going to revisit them. And again, maybe we'll do an hour, maybe we'll do an hour and a half. And at the end of that, if we're not through everything, which we may not be, depending on how much comments and questions and discussion we get, we'll do themes again next time, because I think there's a lot here to discuss and theorize about the upcoming set. And I think it's going to be great, and I'm hoping that we see some of these very important themes, Tolkien themes, in the set. So we've got good versus evil. And I don't just mean black cards versus white cards. I don't just mean like the ring wraiths are going to be black and the hobbits are going to be white. That's not what I mean. Good versus evil. And all of its gray area in between. That's something. Then I've got the fall, air quotes, of man. The fall of man. That is, I guess for lack of a better term, or a better term than the fall, is man's mortality. Man dies. Elf doesn't. And the difference in the way that they live their life, the difference in how they raise their families or express gratitude or give themselves away to the elves because they respect and revere them and revere God. They give their lives away and they sacrifice so much of their lives, and they have such a short lifespan in comparison to the elves. So that's the fall of man. Or mortality, kind of. That's the way I think of it. I'm not sure we're going to go that deep in cards, but you never know. Though, next one, we've got the corruption that power can cause. This is going to be a good one because we're going to see, maybe we're going to see multiple versions of characters on different cards, and maybe we can track, like we talked about last time, Gandalf the Grey to Gandalf the White. Maybe it's 2 different cards or 3 different cards that they've done, like with Urza in Brothers War. Maybe it'll be a flip card where we can like tell a little story with the flip card. But we'll see. Sauron might be the same. He might be Sauron the White, then the mini colored, and then he might be Sharky, and then he might die. So that kind of stuff. Next one is, I got to scroll over. Oh, come on, thing. There we go. Friendship. That's a no-brainer. That's an easy one. But I'm interested to see how that will be applied in Magic. And I'm excited to hear what people think about that one. Next theme, home. The loss of home, or the struggle, the fight to keep your home or to regain your home. And there's a bunch of characters, let's argue all of them, that are going through this struggle. Compassion, pity. This is the next one. Compassion and pity, and their close friend empathy, which is very important in EDH. Me caring about the kind of time you're having when you play against me in a game of Commander is a theme that we can identify if we can pair or group empathy in with pity, feeling bad for somebody, and compassion, caring for somebody. And we're going to see that in a major way, I think, in these cards, where White's going to get a whole bunch of good card draw, and they're going to be able to give gifts away. And if elves are obviously going to be green, what does that mean for cards? What is green going to get? And everybody's like, oh, green doesn't need anything. But maybe they'll get some stuff that really exemplifies friendship, compassion, and empathy. And then perseverance. And these kind of go, this kind of goes hand in hand with the corruption that power can cause, in that if you don't persevere, you become corrupt. If you don't fight, you become your own worst enemy and the worst enemy of your friends. So you can see how some of these themes are tied together. Like if Frodo just gave into his temptation to put the ring on or keep the ring or quit and hide like Gollum did, who would he become? He would become Gollum. Arguably, though he is a gray character, arguably a bad guy, right? So that's the kind of stuff we're going to get into tonight. So let's check some comments. Watching with Joe. Oh, hi. Hi, Lisa. Fellowship as a mechanic. Yes, I can't wait. 9 commanders, but they all have to have fellowship. I'm actually excited to see what the fellowship mechanic is going to be. I think we are going to see a fellowship mechanic. And it might be like partner, it might be like friends forever. I'm not sure exactly what it's going to look like, but I think we might see it. So anyways, let's get back to my notes here. Holy smokes, I got too many things going on. Okay. Good versus evil. Not just black and white, but this is the note. How do we think would be appropriate to represent characters like Saruman, Gollum, and Boromir? And when I say represent, I mean in card form. It's tempting to say Saruman the White would be white, like a white card. Then I think, well, also though, he is a bad guy, and Gandalf discovers he's a bad guy from the moment we meet him in the story. And we discover through the story that he's been a bad guy for a long time. So does that make him a black-white card? Maybe. Flip Gandalf sounds like a thing for sure. Yes. Joe, watch the first episode. God dang it. Saruman. Black-white. I think he's skinned as a planeswalker because that's what they did with D&D. We talked about that a little bit last week, how they framed some of the non-planeswalker characters in Dungeons and Dragons as planeswalkers. I'm thinking of Elminster. Is that right? Elminster? So that's what I think there. The opposite, and one could argue that Gandalf isn't the opposite of Saruman. He's the opposite of Sauron. So is Gandalf, this is what I don't get. If you make Saruman white-black, is Gandalf white-blue? Because he's he's Gandalf the gray? But or do you just make Saruman black? Because he's a bad guy. And you make Gandalf white. Both iterations of Gandalf. Do you make them white? We're going to talk about Boromir next, Keel. I was going to save him for last, but we'll talk about him next. I don't know what they're going to do with the wizards. We're going to see Saruman. We're going to see Gandalf. I think they're either going to be very good creatures, so you can have them be your commander, and you might actually see precons of those two characters. You might see Gandalf, and you have all of the Fellowship in the deck. And here's the tough part. If you have all of the Fellowship or the Rohirrim and Gondorian army in the Gandalf precon, if we get multiple versions of Gandalf, which I think we will, if you have Gandalf as the leader of multiple armies or the Fellowship, you need to have more than just white or just white and blue. Because I guarantee Aragorn's not going to be white-blue. And I guarantee Gimli's not going to be white-blue. And those guys are in the Fellowship. And I guarantee that that Rohan isn't going to be white-blue. It's going to be white-green, right? So if Gandalf leads that army or that precon, is he going to be 5-color? Now, maybe, but I'll throw another monkey wrench in there. In the story, Saruman drops his title or his occupation, Saruman the White. He breaks the white light and to see all of its colors, and he wears this robe that you can't tell what color it is. He's Saruman the Many-Colored. Does that make him 5-color? Or are they exemplifying or representing evil just with the color black, and he's just going to be a black card, and he's going to lead a commander deck of orcs, or Uruk-hai, the ones that invade Helm's Deep, and the Dunlendings, but I don't know if we're going to see them. Is he going to be 5-color, or is he going to be mono black? Or is he going to be white-black? That's what I would like to know. And please feel free to discuss in the comments. Let me know. Or if you're in the Discord, let me know. Next up. Oh, let me check the comments. Gandalf. White-green with splash of red. Oh. He's got the Ring of Fire. He's a wielder of the secret flame. Is Gandalf going to have red? That's a deep cut. That's a deep cut, but not really, as long as you've read the book to the end. If you've only ever seen the movie, Gandalf has a ring of power. Spoiler alert. Sorry. The Ring of Fire. That's why he's so good at fire magic. Theoretically. White. What was the comment? White-green with splash of red. Not white-blue? Like, he's not a blue wizard, I get it. But that's interesting. Saruman should be Esper. That, I could see that. That's conniving. That's, you're getting white, and you're getting black, and you're getting blue wizard. Blue 4 wizard. And we've seen other evil wizards of magic history, like Urte the Corrupted, and I'm sure whoever else, all espered up. Yeah, I could see that too. Black is selfish, win at all costs kinds of thinking. Does Saruman do that though? Does he go to win at all costs? I'm thinking of the quote where he says, our ends don't change, only the means in which we achieve them. And he's talking about using the ring, getting the ring from the Shire, from the hobbits, and using it to become the leaders of Middle-earth, the boss of Middle-earth, the overlord, the grand poobah of Middle-earth. And the means that he achieves that with is using the ring's power. That's very black. Very black. Is that an at all costs thing? I suppose you could interpret it like that, because of characters in the book, there are a few that people have theorized. I've heard theories, read theories. There are a few people that could wield the One Ring. Gandalf the White is one of them, that if he took the ring and had Gondor and Rohan's army, he could potentially beat Sauron and his army. Or at least, could he beat them? Because that's the thing in the book, is there's no possible way to beat Sauron's army. I guess that's not true, because if Gandalf had the One Ring, then the orcs would be subservient to him more than they are now. So if Gandalf had the ring, that's one. If Galadriel had the ring, that's one. If Aragorn had the ring, could he overthrow Sauron? I don't know. I don't know that one. But I bet you he could, because he's the king of Gondor and Arnor. I don't know how we got on that. It was a winning at all costs thing. Let's keep moving. I don't want to hang on Saruman for too long. Let's keep going. Heliod's mono white. Keel, yeah, he is. Heliod is white, and he killed Elspeth. Beloved character. Yeah, he gets ganked by the Phyrexians. 5-color wizards. Yeah, I would like to see that. Wooburg Sauron. I don't think we're gonna get it. Or, and going back to the multiple versions speculation, we could see a white one, a black one, or a flip one, or a meld one, and then we could see different ones leading the precons, because we know we're getting separate precons that are outside of the set, which are going to give us new cards. Or probably they will, because Commander precons always give us new cards. And I'm thinking to Brothers War, where we got Baby Urza, Grown-Up Urza, and then we got Urza, the leader of the precon. That's 3 different Urza cards, right? So that's where I'm going with that. I think we'll see multiple versions of a bunch of the main characters. The wizards and Aragorn in particular, because they go through distinct transformations from who they are or who we think they are, and then who they end up. And Aragorn and Saruman and Gandalf are my 3 biggest transformation characters. Yeah, Nerd of the Rings did a very good what if Gandalf took the ring from Frodo. Yeah. I would recommend. Meld with various legendary rings. Yes. I would like to see meld, because I think of all magic mechanics that makes the most sense, but I don't like meld. I don't think it's good. Like, I've seen maybe 1 or 2 things ever meld ever. I don't know. It kind of feels cheap if it's just an equipment, right? But it kind of feels too hard and not worth it if it's meld, is what I think. I don't know. Maybe it's like the rings of power. If we get more than just the 1 ring, maybe it's like equipment. You equip it. When you equip it, if equipped creature has transform, it can transform automatically, and then you get a powered up Witch King, or you get Frodo going into Invisible Land, or something like that. Or Superpower Frodo, or Superpower Sam. Remember when Sam takes the ring and it's a whole chapter or whatever on like how he can hear better and understand the orcs better, and how he appears to the orcs to be bigger and scarier than what he is. Maybe you get unblockable and hexproof and intimidate and like a whole slew of abilities when you transform, when you equip the 1 ring. Something like that. I think that would be cool. Okay. Boromir. We said we were going to go to Boromir next. And this is a good one. Boromir, I think, at least in my study and understanding of the Lord of the Rings, Boromir is one of the most misunderstood characters in the story. And the movies do him no justice in that they don't lead to better understanding of the character. And I think that's just a result of the story that they were trying to tell, or the constraints that film has as opposed to text. I'm not sure. I don't know enough about movie making and adapting like a screenplay to know why they changed Boromir and Faramir as much as they did, other than for time, because Boromir and Faramir don't have as many lines as they have in the books, especially Faramir. But we'll talk about him maybe next time. He's less of a good versus evil character to discuss anyways, because he's very nearly purely good and gets done dirty in the books, I'll tell you that much. So Boromir, misunderstood because people who've watched the movies first think that he's being tempted by the ring from the very start. And they think that all he cares about is Gondor, and all he wants to do is save Gondor and become a hero and be the king of Gondor. And people say that that's selfish. And the ring plays on and riffs off of selfishness. It'll give you exactly what your most selfish desire is. It'll put that image into your head, right? And that isn't the case with Boromir. Not only is that not the case, he's very polite. When I read Boromir, he's polite. He says things like, he interjects in a way where he doesn't step on anybody's toes. He says things like, I've been in the mountains and I know that at night it gets cold. We should bring wood with us. Or I would suggest that we bring wood with us. And he doesn't say something like, he doesn't say like, if I was in charge, we would all bring wood. Or, you guys, carry wood. It's going to get cold. He suggests and he puts the idea into Gandalf and Aragorn's mind. Remember, Gandalf is the leader of the Fellowship up until Moria, and Aragorn is their guide. So those are the two leader figures in the group, and Boromir's just going with them until they split off and he beats it at Minas Tirith. And he always interjects with good advice, politely, and he's always thinking about those of lower rank. And they're a fellowship, and they're all traveling companions. Nobody is of a higher rank than anybody else, maybe except for Gandalf, because he's the leader. But he's always thinking about the people around him. He's thinking about the hobbits. They're cold. They need to eat. They need rest. They haven't traveled in the mountains. He does all of the things that a good leader would do. But he isn't the leader of this company. But he still falls into line in the appropriate place as the experienced traveler. And it's not until the dire moments that the Fellowship needs to decide this is what we need to do, go through the Emyn Muil or break apart or go south to Gondor. It's not until, like, decide now that the ring pounces on him. Sure, you could say it builds up a little bit, but he doesn't really do anything. Not like he does in the movies where he picks up the ring on the mountains and he, like, whatever. So when Keel says in the comments, I think that Boromir should get a good card, I say, yeah, he should, because he's provincial, he's noble, he's an experienced war leader, captain of the army, defender of his country, an excellent older brother. He volunteers because he's hardier and stronger than Faramir to go on the 100 and some day journey to Imladris. Yeah, he should get a good card. He should get one of the best cards. And not only does, or should he get a good card because he's a good person, when he falls to the temptation of the ring, after he snaps out of it, he goes through the steps of penance, or he repents. There's what are the 3 steps? There's admission, there's admission, apology, and action, for lack of a better word, right? Those are the 3 things that you got to do. I don't remember what the church terms are, but he does all 3. He acknowledges that he was wrong. And he tells Aragorn that when he's dying, and he's all full of, he's a pincushion, and he's full of arrows. He tells Aragorn, I tried to take the ring. I did the bad. I'm sorry I failed you. So he admits he was wrong. He apologizes to the then leader of the company. And then he used his own life to defend Merry and Pippin and died a noble death, the most noble death that he could. defending the company, defending the hobbits, the most important people, arguably, in Middle-earth. And sure, it wasn't the hobbit that had the ring, but it was the hobbits that the orcs were after, and that's who he defended. And he died the most noble of deaths. And he got back his dignity and his honor and everything that he lost in that one moment where the ring got him. And he's a man, and he's mortal, and everybody around him in his kingdom and his line of fathers and sons before and after him are all mortals, and they're all going to die, and their kingdom is failing, and their line is going to end. And he regained all of that after having that one tiny temptation. So yes, Boromir should have a good card because he is a good guy, and he's not a bad guy. So, Boromir the Tempted, would he be banned? I'll get back to the comments right here. I got to go back up a little bit. We're probably not going to talk about Sam today until we get to friendship, if we make it that far. Transform, trigger, da-da-da-da-da. Boromir the Tempted, would he be banned? That's a PBR. Yeah, PBR. I do have some Pilsners. Oh, man, I was at the gas station the other day after hockey, and like small town gas station, like 500 people live here. And I saw a guy wearing like a 1990s, but it was brand new. It looked like those quarter zip, like windbreakers, like they used to wear in the NBA, but it was a Pilsner jacket. Oh, and I wanted to ask him where he got it, but he got into his car before I could. It was so awesome. Anyways, I got PBR. And what color would Boromir be? I don't think he'd be banned. I don't think Boromir's got blue in him. I think he's got white in him. He's a soldier. He lives in Gondor. And Gondor is in the mountains. Or at least some of it is. The Minas Tirith is situated like right up next to Mount Mindolwyn. Is that the name of the mountain? Would he be banned though? Because like if you go into southern Gondor, mind you, that's not where the war is. The war is in Ithilien for the most part until like the War of the Ring like splits off into the Battle of Pelennor Fields and the war in the north up by Lorien and Dale and stuff. Not that those are close together, but that's the war in the north, and it's happening at the same time as the Battle of Pelennor Fields. Would Boromir be white, red, blue? Those would cover the three types of land that you would find in Gondor. South Gondor is mountains and rivers. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rivers in South Gondor. I'm looking at my map. 7 rivers, but one is way far west. And then you've got like the Anduin, the Great River. And you've got mountains and plains. So maybe Boromir would be Jeskai? Or he would just be like human soldier and he would be Boros. That seems easy. Sorry, I sort of burped into the mic. I suck. Israel, his passion overwhelmed him. It wasn't his passion. It was the ring that overwhelmed him. Let's not make that mistake. Because he is good and he wants to do what's right for his country. But the ring overwhelmed him. And it made him think that he should be king. Remember, that's what he wanted. Even since he was young, that's what he's wanted. It would be 10,000 lives of men before it would be long enough for the stewards to become the kings of Gondor. And that didn't sit well with Boromir. He didn't like that. And deep down the ring, I like to think that the ring found that he should be king. And the ring overwhelmed him. I'm just reading some comments here. Blue-white soldiers is a maybe, Robert. Yeah? Blue-white soldiers? If you're going to be a blue-white soldier, though, and you live in the mountains, aren't you going to be a blue-white-red soldier? We should have pie bets. Remember last week we talked about pie bets? Or, we should have, like, beer bets. You have a beer bet, so at the next CCO experience after the Lord of the Rings set comes out, we just have a tally of who's right and who's wrong, and you don't even start open flippy.drinky till you pay up. That's what I think. That would be fun. Jeskai Boromir makes sense. I think so. You get the dice from a Pilsner board game? Send it my way. I'll play with that all the time. All the live long day. Oh, I almost spilled. Okay. Next up, Gollum. Gollum. Unless anybody's got more Boromir, but I'm going to move on. And if I see more Boromir stuff in the comments, I'll come back because they're a little bit delayed. Good versus evil. This is a little bit tricky with Gollum. And I don't know how they're going to represent this on cards. And I keep going back to flip cards or multiple versions of cards because I don't see any other way to do it. And I'm racking my brain for ways that they could represent, for lack of a better term, transformation or multiple personalities. We've got Gollum and Smeagol. Do you put them on one card and give them like two different blocks of text for abilities? One is clearly the bad guy ability and one is the good guy ability. And then do you color code or color that card with the appropriate colors for a good guy color and a bad guy color? I'm not sure. Do you transform them and then the back side is a different color? And then you've got two color identity, or like a color identity of the front and the back combined on a legendary Gollum creature. It's going to be awfully funny when somebody makes a Gollum deck. I don't think Gollum should be the leader of a deck. Okay, that's pretty funny. That's pretty funny right there. Mac, what is going down? Gollum, definitely black, white, flip card. Will interact with the ring. Smeagol front, Gollum back. Smeagol front. I don't know, though. That's not how we're introduced to him. We're introduced, Chapter 2, Shadows of the Past. Gollum is a wretched, vile, terrible creature. Bilbo should have killed him when he had the chance. And when we meet him in the Taming of Smeagol chapter, we meet him a bunch in Fellowship, where he climbs the tree in Lorien, and they hear him in Moria, and he follows them on the river, and it's scary. And he climbs the tree. And anyways, we meet him a bunch of times under the pretense that this is Gollum. And we don't even know about Smeagol. We do. We know that he used to be Smeagol. And he had a terrible life. And that Aragorn and Gandalf found him years ago. And that he escaped from Moria. We know all that stuff, but we've never met and we don't know. And if we were Frodo or Sam or anybody who interacts with Gollum through the story, we don't know who Smeagol is. And as such, I think that Gollum is the forward-facing character, both in our minds and on the card. So I think Gollum would be on the front if it's a flip card, or a transform card, or a meld card, or whatever it's going to be. I think Gollum is the guy. And I think Gollum would be black and blue because he's a waterman. He can swim, he floats in the logs, and he follows them on the river. They can't lose him. He swims, he eats fish. He was a Stour hobbit. He was a Stewer hobbit. He was one of that was the type of proto hobbit he was before the general, the generic hobbit that we have in the Lord of the Rings. I'm talking about like 500 or 1,000 years ago. Stewer hobbit of the river folk who lived near the Gladden fields. That was where the ring was lost by Isildur when he got killed. Gollum found it. Gollum's cousin found it. But he was a river hobbit. So I think he'd be black and blue, is what I think. And again, it comes down to how is that represented in mechanical form on a Magic card. Maybe we're barking up the wrong tree and he'll just be a black-blue legendary creature, like a 1/1 or a 2/2 for 2, and he'll have 2 abilities, like a Gollum ability and a Smeagol ability. It'll be Intimidate and Skulk. They're bringing back Skulk. That's a beer bet. I don't know. The good versus evil thing is the other thing that I struggle with. How do you suggest that, or how do you represent that on cards? Because there are some moments where Gollum is very pitiable and very pathetic, and you feel bad for him. And the movies do no justice to Gollum either. And even if you read or listen to the Andy Serkis audiobooks, they do no justice because he's doing the movie voice, and sometimes it's almost comical after you've heard it and you have this idea of what Gollum looks like and sounds like in your head now because the movies, it's almost comical. But if I had something, picture this, use your empathetic brain for a minute, and if I had a sword or a weapon or something and I used it to just intimidate somebody and force them to do what I wanted them to do until they were at a point where they just cried and shook in fear and crawled around my feet, that would be such a miserable and pathetic and bad life, right? And that's who Gollum is. That's what he is. But at the same time, his need for the ring developed this. That's who Smeagol is. Sorry, that's who Smeagol is. But at the same time, he's got this fierce addiction to the ring that, despite being this sad, pathetic nobody from nowhere with no hometown, he's this fierce, mean, terrible, do anything at all costs being. And I think that part of it is black in Magic. He'll be black, of course. I think everybody would agree. Gollum with Skulk would be neat. Black is the color of ambition. Black is the color of anything at all costs. But what's the other color? Is it? There's no color in Magic that represents like sorrow, pity, patheticness, defeat. There's no color that does that. So that's why I reverted to blue, because he's a waterman. I think that's a solid bet. Oh, hey, check that out. Okay, so Mac and Robert say, okay, I always got such a Smeagol Gollum vibe from the 2 printings of Sig, the River Cutthroat being Gollum, and Sig River Guide being Smeagol. I could see that, and Lorwyn was loosely based on English folklore and fairy tale, and they had the Kithkin in there because they couldn't use hobbits, and I guess they didn't want to infringe on D&D's halfling. I wonder if that was what they were trying to do, is create a sort of Gollum character. Does anybody know who Sig was supposed to represent in English folklore? Does anybody know that? Let me know that. Raw emotion is red. Rakdos Gollum. What about Grixis Gollum? Because again, I can't let go of the Waterman. Now, if we're not taking into account his origins, because outside of Lord of the Rings, you're not going to really... Maybe you would. I don't know. Maybe it depends on how much and how closely you read the story in the appendices. And if they have access to the appendices, we talked about that last time, are we going to know that Gollum is a waterman? Does anybody know? Does anybody care? Or he can swim because he's got big hands and feet. And they go back to that a bunch of times. Paddle-like hands, big flat feet. Okay, we get it. He can swim. Is that not going to matter? And we're going to look at his personality and the types of emotions he displays, and that's what's going to make him the colors that he is. That's going to be red for raw emotion, black for deceit and addiction and power at all costs. Maybe that's good. That's why we have these conversations, because I look at that and I learn something about magic and the color pie, or I remember something, and I think about and look at that the character Gollum, or how magic works. I look at those three things in a different way through somebody else's eyes or with somebody else's ideas in concert with my own. I think that is so fantastic that we can do that. MS, Gollum on 2 cards, one in the beginning and one near the end when he's on Mount Doom. What does that look like? One in the beginning. Would that be a Smeagol character? And the end would be like full-fledged bite your finger off Gollum? Is that what you mean? Expecting access to main Lord of the Rings books, maybe some Hobbit stuff. Typically, licenses to Lord of the Rings are Lord of the Rings plus the appendices. I know that Amazon has Lord of the Rings, appendices, and the Hobbit book, but nothing else without special permission. I don't know, and I don't think it's public knowledge or released yet what they have access to for this set. If it's Lord of the Rings and Hobbit, or Lord of the Rings, I'm willing to bet, and I've said this on the cast, that most likely this will be the biggest and most popular and best-selling set of all time. And if that's the case, I bet you we'll probably see in 2024 or 25 a Hobbit set. I bet you we'll see that. I'm gonna have a little PBR here. Don't like Gollum blue just because he's a waterman river folk, but he's manipulative as heck. Oh, you'll give him blue for being manipulative. Yeah, he's not stupid. He's not stupid. Though he does some things just, I think, purely because he's addicted to the ring, or because he thinks that other people are stupid. Like there's one part in the Two Towers where Sam says that he thinks that Frodo is the smartest guy he's ever met, except for probably Bilbo and probably Gandalf. Those are the two people that are smarter than Frodo. And Sam thinks that Gollum mistook kindness for ignorance or stupidness. And Gollum has moments like that where he misinterprets or thinks the wrong thing, or because he's so ring focused doesn't think or care about anything else. That seems red. That seems passionate, furious. It seems chaotic. The only thing I care about is the ring, so nothing else matters. That seems very red. And once I read Rakdos Gollum, that's kind of where my mind went. Red-black. But Grixis I can't let go of, because not only is he evil at all costs and chaotic, he's also manipulative. I think that a Grixis Gollum would fit, and that would also fit with Esper Sauron, that would also fit with Jeskai Boromir. See, we're developing a trend now where our legendary creatures are all 3 colors. And this is something that they do in shard sets or wedge sets. And I don't know if that's what this is going to be. If they're developing a shard or a wedge or a 3-color theme, or if they're just trying to capture all the colors that could represent some part of the character, which is what I hope they do. And balls all the other stuff about wedges or shards or whatever. I just want them to do the characters accurately and correctly. Dimir for sure, blue for being twisted by the ring. Dimir for sure, blue before being twisted by the ring. Yes. Or blue-green, or just green. He is a hobbit. He is a river folk, but he lives in the forest. Anyways. Gollum, more powerful than a 3/3. Well, that would depend on how tough are hobbits. Are hobbits 2/2s, 1/1s? What are hobbits? Because I think that he's stronger than a hobbit. It takes 2 hobbits to fight Gollum. And they need a sword. That raises an interesting question. How many Merry and Pippin cards are we going to get? Are we going to get them early in the story and at the end of the story when they're like 6 or 8 inches taller and they're like the biggest hobbits that there ever was? Something to think about. Oh, multiple cards of characters can focus on one facet of their personality, so we get mono-colored characters. Remember, they do that with Planeswalkers. Yeah, if we get multiple versions, maybe we'll get a blue Gollum or a Smeagol, a black one, that's the manipulative one, or the at all costs one, and then we'll get the ring-crazed one at red. Maybe we'll get that. Okay. Real quick, somewhere in this discussion, I've got written down here, depictions of war in MTG. And this kind of went with the good versus evil thing, and maybe it could have gone with Boromir. Maybe it'll go along with more character discussion that I've got other character names for. But I just want to read my little note here. Depictions of war in MTG, they are good at depicting war. I got to go over how much are we going to see that presented as a means to develop cards and characters. So let's go back to Boromir real quick. Depictions of war in the set proper, in the greater set, plus the commander precons, plus the draft archetypes, let's say, because it'll be a draft set, right? Or a draftable set. Is there going to be sufficient depictions of war, or is that going to be a theme or a draftable archetype, the army deck, the Gondor deck? And will Boromir or Aragorn or Éomer or King Theoden, are those guys', those characters' abilities or card going to be influenced by that? And I should have mentioned that earlier, because like obviously there's going to be cards that show those armies. Like there's going to be orc cards, and there's going to be like a through line of all the Gondorian characters. There's going to be a style guide. There's going to be a style guide for Rohan. There's going to be a style guide for orcs. Are we going to see abilities that match those styles and characters, and are the leaders of those armies and characters, or the leaders' abilities, going to be dictated by that? I think that was something that we could probably focus on a little bit, but okay. Corruption that power can cause. This is a theme. If anybody has too much power or all the power, it can lead to bad things. And this is through and through a Tolkien theme. And this goes along with his disdain for industrialization. And I think I was racking my brain to develop an idea as to how corruption or power that can cause corruption could be interpreted or transcribed onto a magic card. So I think I'll give a crude example. Every time you attack when the One Ring is equipped, equipped creature gets 5 +1/+1 counters. So every time you attack, you get so much more powerful. But every time you attack, you lose life equal to the number of +1/+1 counters on attacking creatures. That's power, but it kills you, or it corrupts you. Or every time you attack, you have to discard cards equal to the number of +1/+1 counters on the attacking or the equipped creature, right? I'm trying to wrap my head around how power and corruption can be represented in the set. Or do they not do it mechanically and they just give us the story spotlight moments and they expect us to kind of make the jump, right? Like power is corruption is the name of the card, and it's a sorcery that if opponent controls a creature with power 5 or greater, they discard a card. And it shows like Sauron like getting beat up. I don't know. The Ents invading Isengard. I don't know. Is that what is that how they represent corruption? Do we see it on cards or like in abilities, or do we just get it, or do we not get it? Like, is this theme too obtuse to adapt into a set? Not sure. If you don't win the game this turn, you lose the game. Yeah, that's kind of like Last Chance or Final Fortune. And we do have cards like that. That's John. Okay, in Alchemy on Arena, Davriel has a card that has a minus ability. It grants you a boon, but you might get a pretty big nerf. I don't know what that means. So on the point of how power corrupts, two things come to mind. First, the corruption mechanic in 1. Oh, yes, as you get more poison counters, you're corrupted. Yes. I don't know if we'll see poison counters, but why wouldn't we? Why can't they do that anywhere? I guess thematically, poison counters don't really do anything to enhance the Lord of the Rings story. They just add complexity to the gameplay. Anyways, enough counters on a player and the effect of the card is better or different or worse. If you're corrupted, your thing is worse. Like I cast a 10/10 for 5. If I'm corrupted, my 5 mana creature is now 2/2. If I'm corrupted, right? But that doesn't really represent me. I don't want that. The power that the ring gives us, or the power that the ring promises us, doesn't give us that power. It makes us think we'll have that power if we have the ring. If we have the ring, something needs to happen to us to make us think it's a good idea to have the ring, but it's not. It turns into a bad idea to have the ring. I wonder how far they're going to push that. I wonder if going that deep, I wonder if they just make the One Ring card just a good card. Like just a bomb. Or do they just make it a Soul Ring? The second way I could see it is similar to how they handle cumulative upkeep. Ooh, okay. I think there is a card that draws you cards for each age counter, but when it leaves the battlefield, you take damage equal to age counters. There's cards with cumulative upkeep, like take 2 cards from your graveyard, put them on the bottom of your library. So there will be a point where you run out of cards. They could do anything with cumulative upkeep. The longer you have the One Ring, the more you need to pay or pay life. And who's to say that we can't have 2 cumulative upkeep costs, right? One is maybe, or 3 or 4. Maybe the One Ring is so powerful if you control it, but it's got cumulative upkeep, pay 1 life, sacrifice a land, discard a card. So it's tearing you apart mentally by discarding a card. It's making you forget about your home and what you're fighting for. And remember, home is a theme. The ring makes Frodo forget about the sound of water and the taste of strawberries and cream, right? And you're sacrificing land, and then you're paying life. Obviously, it hurts him physically, and it's draining on him. So maybe you see like a triple converted mana cost type, or triple cumulative upkeep type cost on something as powerful as the One Ring. That's a really good idea. Do we get cumulative upkeep though? I don't know if we do. Interesting. Where have we seen reprinted cards with cumulative upkeep in the past? Recently, we got a Mystic Remora Secret Lair, didn't we? Phyrexian Etchings. Yeah, at the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card for each age counter. And then when it's put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you lose 2 life for each age counter on it. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. What if we saw, speaking of cumulative upkeep and counters and ticking up, what if we saw like reverse sagas where it's exactly like a saga, but it enters with 3 counters and you tick down 3, 2, 1, and then something bad happens to you. And the effects are reverse from what sagas are. So they enter the battlefield and you get the good effect first. And then the second effect is and the third effect is like not very good or even bad. And that would both symbolize the ring kind of taking away from you, but it would also incentivize you to get rid of it before you have it for too long. Like when Frodo wants to take the ring back from Sam when he rescues them. That could be a thing. Or maybe something like Eldrazi Monument, John says, where you have to sacrifice a creature or sacrifice something to get this power. Yeah, I don't think that there's any reason to doubt that something bad is going to have to happen to us for us to have the One Ring. And how do you capture corruption in that? What is it that makes us corrupt in Magic? Maybe we only go back on deals in Commander. The One Ring means you can't make deals in Commander. Oh, man. I think that would be cool. Okay, so back to the theme. Corruption that power can cause. Okay, who falls to the ring's influence? Nearly everybody. Boromir does. Gollum obviously does. Denethor does. I think Denethor is a little bit complicated because he also despairs that his line is going to end and his oldest son and the whole thing, right? Frodo does. he ultimately fails his quest, his journey, and is unsuccessful, if not for Gollum. And I would like to remind everybody that one of the themes I'd like to talk about eventually is perseverance. And while Frodo shows probably the greatest perseverance out of any character in the story, he ultimately does fail. He ultimately does not complete and does become corrupted by the ring's influence and wants to keep it and not destroy it. And he claims it for his own, and that would be the downfall of him and the entire world, right? But he does persevere. And essentially, through what is generally thought to be an act of God, he overcomes. And that's my next note, is who overcomes their corruption or their downfall as a result of the ring. And Frodo does, through an act of God. Denethor, you could say he does, because he realizes that Faramir is alive, but essentially he's too far gone. You could lump in Theoden into that, because he's essentially the opposite of Denethor in that he does despair. He does despair at some point through when we find him. And before they get to the Pelennor Fields, the battle at Pelennor Fields, he hits his his lifelong low, his end of life crisis. And then he kind of responds to that and says, I got to do this so I can be a king, right? And he overcomes. And he's actually on my list here. I've got Galadriel, Faramir, Aragorn, Bilbo, Sam, Boromir, Denethor, Sauron, and even orcs on this list of who overcomes and who falls, either to the ring's influence, whether they want it, or whether they're being driven by somebody who has it, in the orcs' case, or in Sauron's case. So Denethor and Theoden, we talked about them a little bit. Boromir and Sauron, we talked about a lot. Sam, Bilbo, Aragorn, Faramir, I would argue, don't fall, don't succumb to the ring. Galadriel is tested and says that she would, or she wants the ring, but she overcomes, so she doesn't fall. It would be interesting to theorize how they do the opposite of trying to capture corruption on cards, or through characters who fall to the ring's influence, Gollum and Frodo and Denethor. What does the opposite of that look like? What does Galadriel, Faramir, Aragorn, Bilbo, Sam, what do those characters look like? And those are I could poll everybody. I could poll everybody in CCO Nation and ask who are your favorite characters in Lord of the Rings, and we would get Galadriel, Faramir, Aragorn, and Sam. Those are everybody's 4 favorite characters. And I think it's because they have the chance to go rogue, to go back, but they don't. Even though they want that. Aragorn wants to be the king, and he's going to Minas Tirith to become the king in the book. Movie Aragorn doesn't. He's kind of wishy-washy on that. Galadriel wants to rule. He wants to have her own realm. That's why she's in Middle-earth. But she doesn't. She sails east after the ring's destroyed. Or she would probably fall to the Dark Lord if it's not destroyed, so she's going to go either way. Bilbo is the only known character in history to give up the ring, semantics aside. And Sam is literally willing to die and do anything for Frodo. Even give him the ring back. Yeah, I guess Bilbo's not the only one, because Sam does it too. I wonder what those characters would be like. Everybody's still talking about what the One Ring and what corruption due to the One Ring would look like in the comments. And please continue. I encourage. But I'm thinking about Galadriel and Faramir and Aragorn and Bilbo and Sam. We're going to get all of those cards. I guess when you're done talking about the ring, you can theorize Galadriel, Faramir, Aragorn, Bilbo, Sam if you want. I've got another sub idea here. Another sub idea to go along with the depictions of war. This is maybe the second last thing we'll talk about. And I wrote down a sense of ancientness. And we got a good glimpse of how well WotC can do this in the OG Dominaria. In Dominaria 2018, where we saw ruins from the Phyrexian invasion, and we saw all kinds of old stuff, old machinery, old landscapes, old weathered things that we recognized from Magic's past, but now we're seeing them. How many years did Dominaria take place after the Phyrexian invasion? I don't know, hundreds, thousands, I don't know, but we're seeing them after the fact. So we know WotC has this ability to show depth and the sense of ancientness. And we know that Tolkien's world has that baked into it and built into it already. And we don't know, but I'm speculating that the Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth set is going to be based on the Lord of the Rings and appendices and nothing else. That's what my speculation is. I wonder how much art we can show from outside of Lord of the Rings, if any, if we need any, and what landscapes, monuments, and scenes best depict ancientness to give us the depth that this story has. Bonus points too if you've read like Unfinished Tales, Silmarillion, or any of the Silmarillion adjacent works like The Children of Húrin, The Fall of Gondolin, Beren and Luthien, The Mariner's Wife, if you've read any of that stuff by Tolkien, bonus points because you know how much depth there is. Do we need all that in the set? I don't know. Can Lord of the Rings accomplish a sense of depth and ancientness without it? This is just a side. This isn't a theme. Ancientness isn't a theme in Lord of the Rings, but it's interesting to think about because I think based on depictions of the Thran during Urza's saga and invasion blocks, and our couple times we've been to Dominaria since we've left, we can get a sense of ancientness. And I think that is going to be hugely important, not only to make the set a success, but to make it feel like you're going to Middle-earth. It needs to feel old, lived in, and battled in, fought for, going back to the depictions of war in Magic the Gathering, which I think would be an entirely fantastic topic to just get into, is depictions of war and maybe war and its effect on the human condition, and look at that through a Magic the Gathering lens. I think that would be so cool to do that kind of stuff. Max says, I feel like a lot of the characters who overcome the ring will not particularly interact with the ring or corruption, if we just call that theme power and corruption, if we call it corruption. I think they're too complex of themes to be depicted on a card. Yes, Galadriel's whole struggle and lifelong history and the inconsistent backstory, if you've read any of the supplemental works by Tolkien, you can't just fit Galadriel on a card. I don't even think in the 50 years that her character was being developed, it wasn't even finished. And that not only says that you can't accurately pin it down or boil it down or distill it into one thing and put it on a card, But it also speaks volumes to how complex of a character this is and how much history and depth and ancientness there is. So any of these characters that don't succumb to the ring, I think maybe for the exception of Sam, because it's the Lord of the Rings where we meet him for the first time, like ever in any of Tolkien's work, I think every other character, I guess Faramir too. Faramir didn't even exist until the Two Towers. All of these other characters might just be a little bit too deep to depict on one card or two cards, and we might not see anything, the opposite of ring corruption, whatever that looks like. We won't see that. We'll just see bitchin' ass good cards. So, last theme I'm going to talk about tonight, friendship. How's it going to be symbolized? How is it going to be threaded into the set? Is it going to be through cards? Is it going to be through group hug? Is it going to be through the types of precons they do? And this, quite arguably, is one of the most important themes of the book. Friendship, camaraderie, platonic love, those are very important themes in this book. And these are the ones that, like, this is the theme of friendship and home and compassion. These are the ones that get me now that I'm a dad, right? Especially the part where Frodo and Sam are in the stairs through the Morgul Vale, and they're talking about being put into stories and books and how their kids will read it to their kids and they'll be put into the stories, right? That one gets me every time. But friendship, how's it going to be represented? There's a bug on the camera. Got him. I don't know if WotC would ever do. This is a tough one because with the precons, which is the best place to represent friendship because that's the product that's designed specifically for Commander, I don't think we're going to see anything like a group hug deck. We're going to see things, and Mac agrees with me in the comments, we're going to see things that are fellowship based. You're going to see like Gimli and Legolas. They might have their own cards, like Legolas Greenleaf of Mirkwood or the Woodland Realm, Gimli Son of Glóin of the Lonely Mountain. You're going to see these two guys, but then you're going to see like Everlasting Friendship or Legolas and Gimli, two like buddy cop team up, Legolas and Gimli on the same card, and then there's going to be a bunch of cards depicting friendship. Merry and Pippin, Shire Liberators. There you go. You're going to see. Oh man, what's another good one? Merry and Pippin. I just said that. Frick. Tom Bombadil and Goldberry. It's another one. They're husband and wife. They're not friends. Bilbo and Frodo. They love each other. Frodo and Sam. Duh. You're going to see possibly individual cards and then possibly a combined buddy cop team up legend. This not only gets more legends, but also helps develop this theme from the story into the set. And then we're going to get story cards like Everlasting Friendship and Runaway Together, and which is a reprint, and Save Your Friend in Battle, that kind of stuff, right? Oh, maybe we'll get Merry and Éowyn, hey, when they team up and kill the Witch King. Ooh, that'd be a good card. That'd be a good card right there. Pippin and Gandalf, which is a very unlikely one. Pippin and Gandalf, but Gandalf kind of, when they get to that last night before the battle of in Gondor, Gandalf kind of acts as a father figure to him, right? Pippin takes Gandalf's hand, and Gandalf puts his hand on Pippin's head like he's his dad and gives him some words of encouragement. Maybe we'll see something like that. The same is true for Theoden and Merry, how they want to spend time and hear about each other's cultures and stories and pipe weed. Maybe we'll see some stuff like that. Maybe we'll see triple team ups, Treebeard, Merry, and Pippin. Or Quickbeam, the other Ent that we meet, and Merry and Pippin. Maybe we'll see stuff like that. Who knows? But friendship, I think that's a definite theme we're going to see. Aragorn and Bilbo. Oh, that's a good one. Aragorn and Arwen. That's one that's very highly underrepresented in the book for how important it is. That one I do know about, and why they wanted to emphasize Aragorn and Arwen's relationship in the films is because you need to give him some reason apart from saving the world and becoming king. You need to give him some motivation, and his motivation is he can't marry Arwen until he becomes the king of both Arnor and Gondor. And they undersell it in the book so much because Arwen didn't even exist until like near the end of the book, and then she had to be retconned back in. And the retconning came by way of like, deep cut. So the Lord of the Rings is like in universe is called the Red Book of Westmarch, and it's written by Bilbo and Frodo and Samwise Gamgee and Findegil King Scribe. Those are the 4 people that wrote the Red Book of Westmarch, and it's essentially the Hobbits' contribution in the War of the Ring. Bilbo finds it, brings it to the Lonely Mountain, helps the dwarves, comes back, brings it to the Shire, gives it to Frodo. Frodo takes it to Mount Doom. That's the story, the Red Book of Westmarch. Bilbo wrote some of it, Frodo wrote the rest of it, and then left a bunch for Sam. And when you read it, once you know that and you can identify who's writing what, the last person who contributes to the Red Book of Westmarch, Findegil King's writer, after I think Merry and Pippin bring the Red Book to be transcribed or copied in Gondor. And the King's scribe adds in additional details, and those additional details, some of them, are the King's scribe writing about the now Queen of Gondor, Arwen. And it's most evident when we first meet Arwen when they're having a supper in Rivendell after Frodo wakes up after getting stabbed, where they're talking about how beautiful she is and the light of the stars is in her eyes and she's got silver and green and white and blah, blah, blah. And she's like the most beautiful thing that ever existed. That's the King's scribe. And it's written like that because it's retconned in. And I would like to see in the Magic set that be played up as much as they play it up in the films or more. I don't think that they can do it more because it's not a movie, but the applicability of Lord of the Rings going all the way back to the start is every time you read it, you find new stuff in it. And now that I'm a grown up and a dad and a husband, I find meaning where I didn't before. And when I read the final parts of the appendices where it talks about Aragorn and Arwen, Aragorn dying and Arwen giving up her immortality and not wanting Aragorn to let go of his life and die. That just, man, the first time I read that after I got married, I was like, oh my God, is that what's going to happen to my wife and I? Is that going to be us? One of us is going to have to die first, right? And it's laughable. You can make light of it, but that's like a real thing that's going to happen to all of us, right? So you find this applicability in there, and I want that to be present in my Magic set. So when I talk about buddy cop team-ups, my number one buddy cop team-up has got to be Aragorn and Arwen. And I hope that that's represented on more than just a buddy cop team-up double legendary creature card. So I talked about that for 4 or 5 minutes without taking a breath or a beer or a comment. Look, So I'm going to read the comments for a quick sec. Gandalf brings comfort? What does that mean? Wormtongue and Sauron? Yeah. What about Wormtongue and Theoden? Ooh. That's like good guy, bad guy. That's good cop, bad cop. Never mind buddy cop. That's really good. Fellowship being an enchantment. I like the idea of fellowship being an enchantment that affects everybody. What if we get we're not going to get anything crazy. Like we're not going to get fellowship like we're going to get experience, or we're not going to get fellowship dice like we have planar dice, right? Like I wish we would. I wish they would go that far in, but at that point we might as well just play the Lord of the Rings card game, right? Which is probably a very good representation of Tolkien and Tolkien themes transcribed onto card game. Claytron, you love the deep tangents, do you? I love them too. I love them. If you want deep tangents, you got to listen to the Red Book on YouTube. Shout out to Steven at the Red Book. We've talked a little bit, and he goes deep. Oh yeah, it goes back to when Gandalf, talking about Gandalf and Pippin during the final night before the battle of Pelennor. Gandalf brings comfort to those who trust him. Yes, I think that's part of his deeper purpose. Maybe that's part of what being Gandalf the White means. If you look at the colors of the wizards as their occupation, the white is supposed to be the leader and the unified or the unifier. And that might be supplemented by the Ring of Fire, his ring of power that he wears, where he can kindle courage. And I use the word kindle because it's the Ring of Fire, right? He can make fire happen. We see that a couple times. He makes fire in the mountains. He makes fire out of pine cones in The Hobbit, right? And we don't explicitly know that he has that ring in The Hobbit, I don't think. Yeah, we do. We find that out in Unfinished Tales, I think. He gets the Ring of Fire way before. Narya, I think its name is, right? And, Narya. He gets that ring way before The Hobbit happens. And I think that ring not only is its power preservation, as all the elven rings have that power to preserve lands. That's why the elvish realms will fail when the one ring is destroyed, because their power, the three elven rings' power, will fail when the one ring that rules them all fails. So the elvish lands that are set to mimic Valinor, the Undying Lands, those realms, like Lothlorien and Rivendell, those realms will fade and fail. So Gandalf has one of these. So preservation, perseverance, which is a theme that we touched on, or we're going to touch on. He has that power. Inspiration, wielder of the secret fire, and you could draw comparisons to the flame imperishable, which only Eru has. He's the god of Tolkien's universe, and nobody else has it. Nobody else can create life. They can only subcreate. But with a ring of power and as a spirit, like an Ainur is a spirit, Gandalf is a wielder of that secret fire. And I think it must be enhanced with his ring of fire, ring of power that does fire. So he can kindle emotions, rouse, inspire, create change. Yeah. I think he does that with Pippin. He certainly does it with Theoden, whom he spends lots of time with in a short amount of time when they first get to Edoras. I've only ever said that word in my head. Edoras. And then when he leaves them, when after they leave Isengard and he's got the Palantir, or he gives it to Aragorn. Yeah, he inspires. I wonder if Gandalf be red. Hey? All that fire talk? I don't know. That's a tough one. But listen, we've been at it for an hour and 40. I would very much like to thank everybody who came and contributed. I always have a blast doing these. I think that will always be true because everybody knows I love talking about Magic. I love talking about Lord of the Rings. I won't be back next Friday because I'll be in Vancouver. But in 2 weeks from now, that is, let's see here, the 17th, I want to make that day the day that we finish talking about themes. And just a quick recap here, we didn't talk about home, loss of home, fighting to keep or regain your home. We didn't really talk about compassion, pity, and empathy, which I think is so very important in multiplayer games, in Commander, and as a human being in general, which is what Magic can teach us, is to be a better human being. And I would love to talk more about perseverance and the idea of hope and high hope or faith in Tolkien's universe and how that would translate into cards. And those the Tolkien words are Omdir is the Elvish word for hope. That's like, I hope I win the lottery, right? I hope it doesn't rain tomorrow. I want to go golfing. And high hope, or Estel, which is faith that things in the universe happen the way that they happen because that's how the universe works. If you don't believe in God, all energy in the universe is equal type thing. And if you do believe in God, things happen the way they happen because of some higher purpose and or providence. They happen that way for a reason. And I think that that's very relatable to Magic in the sense that and I've talked about this on Commander Ad Populum, so if you like this kind of stuff, go listen to that. I think that's so important because when we play Commander or any game, when we game together, we're spending time with each other, and that's fantastic, and we should savor it, and we should continue to relish that time, that fun, that joy. But also, if it sucks, and if you're salty, and if you had a bad game, it's fleeting, and it's only one game, and you can move on and start a new one. And when you combine that with compassion and empathy, and you care about other people's experience, all of that works together for you to draw the most meaning from this game, and from teaching new players this game, and for having Magic contribute to your life in a positive way, and then through you having Magic influence your family, your community, your work life. I think that all of that is super important, and I'd like to explore a little bit more of that in Tolkien's themes of perseverance, hope, high hope, compassion, pity, empathy. So that's what we'll talk about next time in 2 weeks. Big thanks again for everybody that's come and hung out, asked questions, provided input. Man, I didn't even think of some of the colors and some of the buddy cop team ups that some people had suggested, and I love it. I love to see it. I love to think about it in new ways. I love to experience it through other people's eyes. And ultimately, because I've been told that a lot of people are cautious or cautiously optimistic, I'm all the way optimistic, because even if the set sucks, I've had 2 wonderful evenings chatting with friends and talking about 2 of my favorite things combined together. And even if the set sucks, even if the cards suck, there's going to be positives that we can find and identify and have fun with. And it's going to be great. going to be great. I don't know when the set's coming out. I don't think we have a date yet. Q3 is what they say. So we've got plenty more discussions like this coming up. Claytron, you are the best too. Everybody else, I'm out of here. See you in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. We'll see. I'll make an announcement. Twitter, Discord, Facebook,